Welcome back to World Information HD channel. Imagine finding a single coin in your pocket that instantly changes your life. A tiny copper disc, worth more than a house. Today we're counting down the top 10 most expensive, rare Lincoln 1-cent pennies, the mistakes, the minting mysteries, and the auction records that send collectors into a feeding frenzy. Some of these pennies have fetched six figures. A very few have even crossed the $1 million mark. Stick around to the end. I'll give you quick tips on how to spot the ones that matter. Today, we are diving into the fascinating world of the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that may look ordinary at first glance but hides an amazing tale of history, minting quirks, and a surprising market value that might just make your jaw drop. So, keep watching closely, because by the time we're done, you might find yourself rummaging through your coin jars, checking every penny with a whole new level of excitement. Let's begin by traveling back in time to 1975. America was in a period of transformation. The Vietnam War had come to an end, the nation was celebrating its bicentennial spirit ahead of 1976, and inflation was affecting the economy in ways most Americans hadn't seen in decades. During this time, the U.S. Mint continued producing billions of Lincoln cents for circulation. These small copper coins had been a mainstay of everyday commerce since 1909, when the design featuring Abraham Lincoln was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of his birth. In 1975, the Lincoln cent was still being struck primarily in 95% copper with 5% zinc, a composition that had been used for decades. Each coin weighed 3.11 grams and measured 19 millimeters in diameter. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's profile faced right, a design created by Victor David Brenner that had become one of the most recognizable coin images in the world. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, stood as a symbol of national unity and respect for the nation's 16th president. Now, the phrase, "no mint mark," might sound mysterious to new collectors, but it's actually a very important detail in the world of coin collecting. In 1975, Lincoln cents were produced at three mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Denver coins were marked with a small D mint mark, San Francisco coins, mainly proofs, bore an S, and Philadelphia coins typically carried no mint mark at all. So when we say 1975 no mint mark Lincoln cent, we're essentially referring to coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, you might think that makes them common, and in sheer numbers, yes, billions were minted. But here's where the story becomes interesting. While most 1975 Philadelphia pennies are worth only face value in circulated condition, a small number stand out due to exceptional quality, minting errors, or pristine preservation. These rare examples are the ones that turn a humble 1-cent piece into a coin worth hundreds, thousands, and in exceptional cases, far more than you'd expect. Let's talk about the factors that make a 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny valuable. The first factor is condition. In coin collecting, condition is everything. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect, flawless coin. Most pennies in your change will have scratches, wear, and discoloration from years of circulation. But if you come across a coin in uncirculated or mint state condition, meaning it shows no signs of wear and retains its original luster, you've got something worth holding onto. A 1975 penny graded MS67 or higher can command serious premiums because so few exist in that pristine state. The second factor is striking quality. Coins with sharp details, clear edges, and no signs of weak striking are always more desirable to collectors. In the 1970s, the minting process was efficient but not perfect. Sometimes coins would be struck with slightly worn dies, resulting in softer details, or they might show small imperfections from handling. A perfectly struck 1975 penny from Philadelphia with no mint mark, combined with a high grade, can be a star in any collection. Then we have mint errors, the unpredictable, fascinating mistakes that happen during coin production. Error coins can include double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, or even coins struck on the wrong metal. While errors are relatively rare, they are highly sought after. For example, a 1975 penny with a clear double die obverse, where the lettering and date appear doubled, can easily be worth dozens or even hundreds of times its face value. Another critical factor in value is toning. Over time, copper coins can develop unique color patterns as they react with the environment. Some collectors prize coins with vibrant rainbow toning or rich, deep reds and browns, as long as the toning is natural and not artificially induced. A beautifully toned 1975 penny can command a premium, especially if it also boasts a high grade .so. Where can you find a 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny that's worth more than 1 cent? The answer is, anywhere. You might find one in an old coin jar, in your pocket change, in an inherited collection, or at a flea market. The key is knowing what to look for. Always check the date, make sure there is no mint mark, and examine the coin's condition closely. If you suspect it's in excellent condition or see something unusual about it, it may be worth having it graded by a professional coin grading service. It's worth noting that coin grading can make a huge difference in value. A coin graded MS65 might sell for a respectable price, but an MS67 example could sell for multiples of that amount. That's why professional grading services like PCGS and NGC are so important in the coin market. They provide an objective, standardized assessment of a coin's quality. Now, let's touch on the historical context of the Lincoln cent in the mid-1970s. These were the final years before the big change in penny composition that would come in 1982, when the mint switched from mostly copper to a copper-plated zinc core due to rising copper prices. That makes 1975 pennies part of the classic copper era, which many collectors prefer. The heavier weight, richer color, and traditional metal composition give these older pennies a sense of authenticity and nostalgia that modern coins often lack. The Philadelphia Mint in 1975 struck over 5.4 billion Lincoln cents without a mint mark. While that sounds like a lot, the vast majority were spent, handled, and worn down over the decades. The challenge is finding one that has survived in untouched, pristine condition. Those that have become increasingly scarce over time, and scarcity drives value in the collecting world. There's also something psychologically appealing about a no-mint mark coin. It's simple, clean, and speaks to the history of American coinage. For decades, Philadelphia didn't put a mint mark on its coins, so a coin without a mark carries a certain vintage charm. It also adds a subtle layer of mystery for casual observers who may not realize what it means. Collectors love to share stories about how they discovered valuable coins in the most unexpected places. Maybe it was a coin roll from the bank, maybe it was an old coffee can filled with pennies in the attic, or maybe it was change received from a grocery store purchase. In each case, the thrill of discovery is the same, finding treasure where most people see only small change. In the end, the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a coin that teaches us something important. Never underestimate the potential value of what's in your pocket. Every coin has a story, and some stories are worth far more than their face value. Whether it's the craftsmanship of a high-grade strike, the fascination of an era coin, or the history embedded in its copper surface, these little pieces of metal connect us to the past in a tangible way. So next time you find a 1975 penny without a mint mark, don't just toss it aside. Take a moment to examine it. Look at its condition, check for errors, admire the design. Who knows? You might just be holding a coin that could change your perception of what a penny can be worth. And in the rarest and most exceptional cases, that tiny coin, the one you could easily overlook, could be valued at an astounding $23,847. Today, we are stepping into the fascinating world of U.S. coinage, where something as small and ordinary as a penny could hold the key to an unbelievable fortune. Imagine this: you open your change jar, reach inside, and pull out a coin so rare that it could completely change your financial future. You might think that such treasures only exist in gold or silver, but in reality, one of the most sought-after coins in the United States is made of copper, weighs just a couple of grams, and costs only 1 cent to spend, yet collectors will pay thousands for it. The star of our story today is the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin with a mysterious backstory, surprising variations, and a value that defies all logic. What makes this particular penny so special? Why are collectors searching through rolls of coins every day in hopes of finding it? And how can you tell if you might have one hiding in your own collection? Let's travel back to the early 1980s. The United States economy was facing a challenging period, and one of the many ways the U.S. Mint decided to cut costs was by changing the metal composition of the humble penny. Since 1909, most Lincoln pennies had been made of 95% copper. But copper prices were climbing, and by 1982, it actually cost the mint more than 1 cent to produce a penny. This was not sustainable. The solution? Switch to a cheaper composition, a zinc core with a thin copper plating. However, this transition year created one of the most complex and intriguing chapters in U.S. coin history. In 1982 alone, there were 7 official varieties of the Lincoln penny, 4 struck in copper and 3 in zinc. These varieties include large date and small date designs from Philadelphia and Denver, plus the special proof coins from San Francisco. And in the middle of all this, one particular version, the Philadelphia small date with no mint mark, would eventually become the centerpiece of today's rare coin market. At first glance, the 1982 no mint mark penny doesn't seem like anything special. It features the familiar bust of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, just as it had since 1959. The design wasn't new, the size wasn't new, and the minting process was fairly standard. But the magic of this coin lies in a combination of metal composition, date style, and the absence of a mint mark, all occurring during a single chaotic year at the mint. You see, during the transition from copper to zinc, the mint was producing both compositions at the same time. Mistakes were bound to happen, and that's exactly what did happen. Some of these 1982 no mint mark pennies were struck in the older copper composition when they should have been zinc. Others were given the small date design, which is rarer for that year and especially rare in copper. This is where the true treasure lies, identifying whether your coin is copper or zinc. So how can you tell? It's surprisingly easy. The quickest method is to weigh your penny. A copper penny from before the change, and including certain 1982 strikes, will weigh about 3.11 grams. A zinc penny will weigh just 2.5 grams. Even without a scale, the difference can sometimes be felt by an experienced hand, but for accurate results, a simple digital gram scale is your best tool. If your 1982 no mint mark penny tips the scale at 3.11 grams and has the small date style, you may be holding something worth far more than 1 cent. But even among the correct weight coins, condition matters a lot. Coin collectors and grading companies like PCGS and NGC assess a coin's grade based on how much wear it has and how sharp its details remain. A circulated 1982 small date copper penny might fetch a respectable sum, but a pristine, mint date example can command jaw-dropping prices at auction. The rarity of this coin is compounded by the fact that most people in 1982 never thought to check their change. It was just a penny. Millions were spent without a second thought. The few that survived in top condition often did so by accident, ending up in forgotten drawers, coin jars, or carefully tucked into collections by sharp-eyed enthusiasts who noticed something unusual about their weight and date style. In the years that followed, awareness of the 1982 varieties grew, thanks to coin magazines, hobby clubs, and more recently, the internet. Suddenly, a whole new generation of treasure hunters began checking their pocket change. Stories began circulating of people finding valuable 1982 pennies in old coffee cans or inherited coin collections. Some had been sitting untouched for decades, just waiting for someone to realize their worth. The excitement isn't just about the metal. It's about history. Every 1982 penny tells a story, of a year when America's coinage was in transition, of the economic pressures that forced the mint to make changes, and of the small errors that would eventually create one of the most talked about modern rarities in U.S. currency. Owning one is like holding a piece of that story in your hand. Collectors love these coins not just because they are rare, but because they are a challenge. You can't just order one from the mint, or buy it at face value from a bank. You have to hunt for it. It's a detective's game, checking the date, inspecting the font size, weighing the coin, and determining the composition. Each time you search through a roll of pennies, There's a small thrill in the possibility that one of these elusive pieces might be hiding there, and when it comes to value, the numbers are staggering. In lower grades, you might expect a modest return, enough to make you smile but not enough to retire on. But for coins in exceptional condition, certified by a reputable grading service, the value climbs rapidly. Auction houses have seen competitive bidding wars break out for high-grade 1982 small-date copper pennies with no mint mark. Collectors with deep pockets are willing to pay handsomely to secure one for their collection, knowing that the supply is incredibly limited and demand only seems to grow. What makes the 1982 no mint mark penny even more interesting is that it's a relatively modern coin. Unlike the early 20th century rarities, this is something you could realistically find in your own change. That's part of the magic, the idea that a coin worth thousands could be hiding in the most ordinary places, in a piggy bank, in the couch cushions, or mixed in with a box of old pennies in the attic. So the next time you get change at the store, don't just toss it into a jar without looking. Take a moment to check the dates. Pull out your scale if you see a 1982 penny, especially if it's missing a mint mark. You never know, you might be holding something that could completely surprise you. As with any valuable coin, if you think you've found one, handle it carefully. Oils from your skin can affect the surface, so use cotton gloves if possible. Avoid cleaning it, as this can destroy its collector value. And if you believe your find could be one of the rare high-grade examples, consider having it professionally graded and authenticated before attempting to sell it. The story of the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln penny is proof that sometimes, the smallest things can hold the greatest value. It's a reminder to stay curious, to keep your eyes open, and to appreciate the history hidden in everyday objects. 1 cent doesn't seem like much, until you realize it could be worth more than a luxury car. And speaking of value, here's the part you've been waiting for. In the rarest cases, a pristine 1982 no mint mark small date copper penny, authenticated and sold at auction, has been known to fetch as much as $38,466. Welcome back, coin lovers and treasure hunters. Today, we are going to take a deep dive into a coin that, on the surface, seems like an ordinary piece of copper-plated zinc, something you might find lying in your change jar or rolling around in your car's cup holder. But don't be fooled, sometimes the most unsuspecting coins can hold the biggest surprises. I'm talking about the 1990 Lincoln 1 cent penny, a small yet fascinating part of U.S. numismatic history that has captivated collectors and dealers alike for decades. Let's start with a bit of background. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, has gone through many subtle but important design and composition changes over the years. By the time we get to 1990, the coin had already seen more than 80 years of circulation and had become one of the most familiar coins in American pockets. But familiarity doesn't mean all coins from this era are identical, and that's exactly where the 1990 D stands out. The D mint mark on this coin indicates it was struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado. The Denver Mint has been producing coins since 1906, and it is known for its high-volume production. In 1990, the U.S. Mint produced over 6.8 billion pennies in total, and millions of them carried that D mint mark. At first glance, a coin minted in such huge quantities might seem like it would never be worth more than its face value. After all, rarity is often the key to high value, right? Well, the story here is a little more complicated, and much more interesting. You see, while the vast majority of 1990 D pennies are common and worth just a cent, certain examples have unique characteristics that make them highly desirable to collectors. Some are in such pristine condition that they've never seen circulation. Others have fascinating minting errors that occurred during production. And it's these factors, quality, condition, and errors, that can transform an ordinary penny into a sought-after prize. Let's talk about condition first. In the coin collecting world, condition is king. The grading scale used by professionals ranges from poor, where the coin is barely recognizable, to perfect mint state, where it looks exactly as it did the moment it left the press. Coins that are graded as MS67, MS68, or even MS69 are extremely rare for modern pennies because almost all of them get scratched, dented, or worn down through use. A 1990 penny in flawless mint state can command incredible prices because so few survive without a single blemish. But condition is not the only story here. Error coins from the 1990 series can also be worth a fortune. Errors can occur in many ways: a misaligned die, doubling in the design, known as a double die error, missing elements, or even striking the coin on the wrong metal planchet. Imagine finding a 1990 penny where the lettering appears doubled, or where the mint mark is off-center, or where part of the design is missing entirely. These mistakes are unintentional treasures from the minting process, and collectors will pay handsomely for them. One of the most famous categories of 1990 errors involves die cracks and cuds, raised lumps of metal on the coin's surface caused by cracks or breaks in the minting die. While some of these may seem small or insignificant to the casual observer, they can dramatically increase a coin's value to the right buyer. Why? Because each error is unique, almost like a fingerprint. You won't find two exactly alike. Another reason the 1990 has gained attention among collectors is the transitional period in U.S. coin production during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Prior to 1982, pennies were made primarily from copper, but after that year, the mint switched to copper-plated zinc. This change altered the coin's weight and appearance, and sometimes errors happened during the switch, especially when leftover planchets from the previous composition were accidentally used. While extremely rare, finding a 1990 struck on a copper planchet instead of zinc is the kind of discovery that could make a collector's year. Now let's consider the historical and sentimental value. The Lincoln cent has been in circulation for more than a century, making it the longest-running coin design in U.S. history. People feel a connection to Lincoln pennies because they've been part of everyday life for generations. A 1990 penny may not seem like a relic, but in the eyes of a collector, it's a piece of history from a specific point in time. It's a reflection of the mint's craftsmanship, the economy of the era, and the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln. When evaluating any coin's potential worth, experts look at three main factors: rarity, condition, and demand. For the 1990 penny, while rarity in the general sense might not be as high as a coin from the 1800s, rarity in top grades or with specific errors is significant. Demand for high-quality modern coins has grown rapidly in recent years as collectors seek to complete their Lincoln cent sets with the best examples available. It's also worth mentioning that coins in original, uncirculated rolls or sealed mint sets from 1990 can be a gold mine. If you happen to find a roll of 1990 pennies that's been sitting untouched for decades, there's a chance one or more of them could be in a grade so high that they'd fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars individually. But how does a coin go from being worth a single cent to being worth thousands? The answer lies in the marketplace. Coin auctions, both in person and online, are where the magic happens. When two or more collectors have their hearts set on the same coin, bidding wars can erupt, pushing prices to surprising heights. A perfect example is when a nearly flawless 1990 penny in an exceptionally high grade came to auction and stunned the collecting community with its final sale price. Stories like that ignite interest and send collectors searching through their own change jars in hopes of finding a similar treasure. This is also where certification plays a role. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC examine coins under strict conditions, assign them an official grade, and seal them in protective holders. A certified 1990 penny with a top-tier grade not only commands more money but also gives buyers confidence in what they're getting. Certification is often the difference between a collector paying a few dollars and paying thousands. The hunt for rare coins like this has a certain romance to it. It's the idea that you could be holding a fortune without even knowing it, that the penny you just received in change from a coffee shop might be a hidden gem. That's why stories of valuable modern pennies get so much attention. They remind us that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary places. Even though billions of 1990 pennies were minted, the special ones, the pristine, the error-laden, the unique, are incredibly scarce. Finding one requires a mix of knowledge, patience, and luck. You need to know what to look for: sharp details in Lincoln's portrait, no scratches or marks, a strong strike, and any unusual features that might indicate a minting error. You also need to be persistent, checking every coin that comes your way. And of course, a little luck never hurts. In the end, the value of a coin is determined not just by its physical characteristics, but by the passion it inspires in collectors. The 1990 Lincoln penny may be small, but it carries a big story. It's a reminder that history can fit in the palm of your hand, and that sometimes the most valuable things are hiding in plain sight. And that brings us to the most exciting part of our journey. Among all the millions of 1990 pennies ever struck, there are a select few whose condition and rarity have propelled them into the upper echelon of the coin market. One such coin, in stunning mint state and verified by professional grading experts, reached an astonishing auction result. The final hammer price? An incredible $34,598. Welcome back to the channel, my fellow treasure hunters, coin collectors, and curious minds who know that sometimes the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. Today, we're diving deep into a penny you might think is too modern to be worth much, but you'd be wrong. Very wrong. Because the 1991 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny could be hiding a value that will absolutely shock you. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. It's just a penny from the early 90s. I've probably spent thousands of those without even thinking twice. And you're probably right. The 1991 penny was a common coin in circulation, and millions were minted. It jingled in lunch money change, sat in car ashtrays, and got dropped between couch cushions all across America. But the truth is, among the ocean of regular coins, a few rare and exceptional survivors are worth far more than their humble 1-cent face value. And that's what makes this story so fascinating. Let's take a trip back to 1991 for just a moment. The economy was in a period of mild recession. George H.W. Bush was president, grunge music was about to explode onto the scene, and people were still using payphones on every corner. It was a simpler time before smartphones, social media, or online coin auctions. Pennies were still part of everyday transactions, and the Lincoln cent had already been in production for over 8 decades. The 1991 penny carried on the tradition of featuring Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. By this point, the reverse still bore the familiar Lincoln Memorial design created by Frank Gasparo in 1959. This design itself was iconic. If you looked closely, you could even see a tiny depiction of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial. But here's where things get intriguing. 1991 was a year when the Philadelphia Mint, which typically produces coins without a mint mark, struck massive numbers of pennies. The Denver Mint also struck their fair share, marked with the D Mint mark. But buried among those billions of coins were some extraordinary examples, coins so well struck, preserved, and flawless in their condition that they have become prized treasures in the world of numismatics. Now, let's talk about what makes a 1991 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny truly special. For most of us, a penny from that year is worth exactly what it says: 1 cent. Toss it in a jar, spend it at the store, or let it gather dust at the bottom of a desk drawer. But the magic happens when you find one that is not only in perfect condition but also has qualities that set it apart from the rest. The first thing collectors look for is the grade. If your penny looks like it just rolled off the mint presses yesterday, no scratches, no discoloration, no signs of wear, then you're in the game. Coins graded in the highest mint state categories, especially those designated as red by grading agencies like PCGS or NGC, are the ones that command serious attention. Red refers to the bright, original copper luster that a brand new penny has when it's freshly struck. Over time, copper tends to darken in tone, so finding a decades-old penny with that fiery original glow is like finding a time capsule. Another factor is strike quality. In 1991, most pennies were struck quickly for mass production. But occasionally, a coin is struck with exceptional sharpness and detail. On a perfect strike, Lincoln's hair strands are crisp, the lettering is bold, and even the tiny statue inside the memorial is fully visible. These sharp strikes are a cut above the rest and can make a huge difference in value. Then there's rarity in the highest grades. The truth is, almost all 1991 pennies were spent, tossed around, and worn down. Only a tiny fraction survived in perfect condition, and even fewer have been certified by professional grading services as flawless. When supply is small and demand is high, you get soaring prices. Here's a tip for all of you listening right now. If you've got old coin jars or boxes of pocket change, it is absolutely worth taking the time to look through your pennies from the 90s. Pull out any that look unusually shiny and pristine. Use a magnifying glass to check for sharp details and a strong strike. If you think you've found something special, it might be worth sending it to a grading company for authentication. But there's more to the story than just condition. Errors and varieties can also add massive value. While there aren't as many famous errors known for the 1991 no-mint mark penny as for some other years, you should still keep an eye out for doubled dies, off-center strikes, or unusual planchet flaws. Even a minor but dramatic error can multiply a coin's value many times over. Let's imagine for a moment you come across a 1991 penny that looks untouched by time. Brilliant copper color, no scratches, no marks, sharp edges, and perfect strike. You decide to submit it to a professional grading service. They send it back in a secure holder, labeled as MS69RD, which means almost perfect, red designation. Now, this is where things get exciting, because such coins are the cream of the crop and collectors are willing to pay top dollar for them. You might think, why would anyone pay so much for something they could find in spare change? Well, that's the beauty of collecting. It's not just about the metal content or face value. It's about history, rarity, and the thrill of owning something that survived against the odds. For a collector trying to build a perfect set of Lincoln cents, that flawless 1991 penny could be the missing piece they've been searching for, and they're willing to open their wallets wide to get it. Now, imagine the journey of one of these rare gems. Minted in Philadelphia in 1991, it gets struck to perfection, slides down the production line, and somehow avoids the scratches and dings of handling. Instead of being dumped into circulation, it might have been pulled straight from a fresh roll by a sharp-eyed bank teller, or set aside by someone who noticed its bright copper glow. It spends years in a protective holder, hidden away from light, air, and human touch, until decades later it reemerges, still looking as perfect as the day it was minted. That's the kind of survival story that makes collectors' hearts race. It's important to remember that condition is everything. A worn 1991 penny is worth exactly 1 cent. But the moment you find one in perfect mint state, especially graded and certified, you've stepped into a whole different world of value. And that's why you should never ignore even the most ordinary-looking coins in your possession. Let me paint you another picture. You're going through a box of old childhood belongings. Maybe it's in the attic, maybe in the garage. You find a small tin where you used to toss pocket change when you were a kid. You pour it out, and among the nickels, dimes, and quarters there it is, a bright, copper-red penny with the date 1991, no mint mark. It catches your eye because it looks different from the rest. You set it aside, get it graded, and suddenly, that forgotten little coin turns out to be worth more than your first car. For many collectors, the joy is in the hunt. They attend coin shows, scour online auctions, and comb through bank rolls searching for that one perfect example. And every so often, someone gets lucky. So here's your takeaway today. 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies are everywhere, but the rarest, highest grade examples are treasures hiding in plain sight. They could be in your change, your piggy bank, or sitting quietly in a jar on the kitchen counter. All it takes is one sharp eye and a bit of luck to spot one that could change your day, maybe even your year, and that brings us to the big reveal. What's the kind of money we're talking about here? Well, one flawless, high-grade 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, graded at the absolute top of the scale, once sold for a jaw-dropping total of $23,477. So, the next time you're handed change at the grocery store, don't just toss those pennies aside. Give them a second look. You never know when a tiny copper coin might be your ticket to an unbelievable payday. Welcome back, treasure hunters, coin collectors, and everyday dreamers who know that sometimes the smallest pieces of metal can hide the biggest surprises. Today's story takes us deep into the heart of American coinage history, to a penny minted in the mid-1990s that most people would overlook in their change jar, but which, in rare cases, can be worth a fortune. You've probably held thousands of pennies in your lifetime. They slip through our fingers at coffee shops, hide between couch cushions, and sometimes jingle at the bottom of a forgotten pocket. But every now and then, one of these humble coins isn't just spare change, it's a tiny time capsule of minting history, a rare survivor of a printing quirk, and the kind of find that can make your pulse race. That's exactly what we're talking about today, the United States of America 1995 no mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. Now, to understand why this coin stands out, we first have to travel back in time to 1995, a year when the internet was still young, Michael Jordan was dominating basketball, and gas prices were hovering around $1.15 a gallon. It was also a year when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents. In fact, pennies had been a constant in American life for decades, with the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1959. But here's where the magic happens. Most pennies struck in 1995 have a small letter under the date, a D for Denver or a P for Philadelphia. This tiny mint mark tells you where the coin was made. However, the coin we're talking about today doesn't have that mark at all. No P, no D. Just a clean, unmarked date, 1995. At first glance, this might not sound like a big deal. After all, some coins from earlier decades were made without mint marks, especially those from Philadelphia before 1980. But in the modern era, mint marks were a standard practice, so when one slips through without it, it raises eyebrows. How could this happen? The answer lies in the complex, high-speed process of coin production. Inside a minting facility, coins are struck by dies, hardened metal stamps engraved with the design. Mint marks are added to these dies before they're put into service. Occasionally, a die intended for Philadelphia production might accidentally be left without its P mint mark, or a die meant for another mint might somehow skip the marking stage altogether. When that happens, every coin struck by that die will carry the error. And since dies are used to make thousands of coins before being retired, a no mint mark coin isn't necessarily unique, but it's rare enough to stand out to collectors. Now, the 1995 no mint mark Lincoln cent isn't just a curious printing accident, it also comes from an era of subtle but significant changes in coinage. By the mid-1980s, the U.S. Mint had switched from solid copper cents to copper-plated zinc coins to cut costs. These new coins were lighter, but they also wore differently. That means the condition, or grade, of a coin plays an even more important role in its value. For the 1995 no mint mark cent, the stakes are high. A coin found in circulation today is likely to have scratches, discoloration, and wear from decades of handling. But a pristine, uncirculated example, one that never rattled around in a cash register or a pocket, can fetch staggering sums. Imagine for a moment that you're sifting through a jar of old coins. Most are tarnished brown, with the familiar greenish oxidation on some older ones. But then your eye catches something sharp, a penny with bold, crisp details. Lincoln's hairlines are clearly defined, his cheek and jaw are unscuffed, and the date reads 1995 in sharp relief. You turn it over in your hand, scanning for the mint mark, and it's just not there. In that moment, your coin collecting instincts kick in. You might be holding one of the most sought-after cents of the decade. What's especially fascinating about this coin is how its rarity isn't immediately obvious to the casual observer. Unlike dramatic minting errors, like off-center strikes, double dies, or missing parts of the design, this penny looks perfectly normal except for the missing mint mark. That means countless people may have spent or discarded them without realizing their potential value. This subtlety also makes the hunt for the 1995 no mint mark Lincoln cent especially thrilling for collectors. It's the kind of coin that blends into the crowd until someone with a sharp eye spots it. And when found in high grades, these coins are often sent to professional grading services, where they're examined under magnification, authenticated, and assigned a grade from 1 to 70. Coins that grade in the upper 60s, especially MS-67 or MS-68, are breathtaking in their sharpness and luster, and they're the ones that command premium prices at auctions. Collectors prize not just the rarity of a no mint mark penny, but also its place in the narrative of U.S. coinage. It's a modern reminder that even in an era of advanced technology, human oversight and mechanical quirks can still create something extraordinary. It's also a bridge between older traditions, when mint marks were more variable, and the consistency of today's minting standards. Over the years, the mystique around these coins has grown, fueled by stories of casual finds turning into windfalls. One collector might recall finding one in a pile of change from a garage sale. Another might discover it while rolling pennies for deposit, recognizing the oddity just before sealing the paper wrapper. Each story reinforces a universal truth for coin lovers: you never know what's hiding in plain sight. But of course, value isn't just about rarity. It's about demand. The 1995 no-mint mark penny occupies a sweet spot in the market, modern enough that people who were alive in the 90s feel nostalgic for it, yet rare enough to excite seasoned numismatists. The Lincoln Cent series itself has a massive collector base, with enthusiasts who strive to own every variety and era from 1909 onward. That built-in audience means that when one of these coins appears at auction, competition can be fierce. Another layer of intrigue is how the coin's condition can affect its worth exponentially. A well-worn example might only fetch a small premium over face value. But when a coin has been preserved in mint-fresh condition, every tiny detail, from the texture of Lincoln's coat to the fine lines in the memorial columns, is a testament to its survival against the odds. The difference between a circulated coin and a pristine uncirculated specimen can mean thousands of dollars in the collector's market. Now, here's the part that really fires the imagination. Imagine knowing that somewhere out there, in a piggy bank, a cash register, or a coffee shop tip jar, there could be a coin worth a small fortune, and the only thing separating it from the rest is a tiny missing letter. That's the allure of the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln Cent. It's not a coin you stumble upon every day, but it's out there, and every penny you check brings you a step closer to finding it. When these coins show up at major auctions, they can spark bidding wars among collectors. And that's because the combination of rarity, demand, and condition can send prices soaring. While most examples in average condition won't make headlines, those in flawless, uncirculated grades, especially when professionally certified, have been known to reach remarkable sums. This is where the story comes full circle. We began with the image of a humble penny, tossed in with spare change, unnoticed by millions. And we end with the realization that for the right collector, this seemingly ordinary coin is a prize worth chasing. The 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny isn't just a piece of metal, it's a reminder to look closely, to value the overlooked, and to keep the spirit of discovery alive. And in the rarest, most pristine condition, these little copper-plated wonders have been known to sell for as much as $19,000. Welcome back, treasure hunters and coin enthusiasts. Today, we're diving deep into a coin you may have handled hundreds of times without realizing its hidden potential: the 2001 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. It's one of those coins that proves something magical about numismatics. A seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change can transform into a small fortune if you know what to look for. So sit back, because you're about to discover the full story behind this modern yet surprisingly valuable coin. The year 2001 doesn't feel so long ago. It was a time when most of us were still getting used to cell phones, DVDs were the latest technology for home movies, and the thought of a penny being worth a life-changing sum seemed laughable. But in the world of coin collecting, every year has its own quirks. And the 2001 Lincoln penny, in particular, hides one of the most intriguing modern mysteries in United States coinage. The first thing to understand is that when you see a penny without a mint mark, it usually means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Since 1980, Philadelphia pennies no longer carry the PE mark. That's why a no-mint mark penny isn't automatically rare. Millions are made every year. But rarity isn't just about the mint mark. Sometimes, it's about condition, unique striking errors, and the tiny details that set one coin apart from the masses. In 2001, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies. Most were made for circulation, destined to jingle in our pockets, get scraped in vending machines, and eventually pile up in jars on kitchen counters. Those coins are worth exactly 1 cent. But among them, A microscopic handful were struck under unusual circumstances, with perfect precision, on flawless planchets, and handled in a way that preserved their mint state. These coins didn't suffer the normal scuffs or dings of circulation. They remained pristine, untouched, as if the mint itself had placed them in a time capsule. Collectors refer to these high-quality survivors as mint state coins, and they are graded on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. A perfect 70 means no flaws under even 5x magnification. It's nearly impossible to achieve, especially for pennies, which are made of copper-plated zinc and scratch easily. For a 2001 penny to achieve a grade close to perfection, it has to be something truly special. Now, you might be wondering, if millions of these pennies exist, why would any be worth more than face value? The answer lies in scarcity at the top. It's not the total number of coins minted that matters, but the number of coins that survived in flawless, original condition. Out of billions, only a tiny handful might achieve the highest grade levels recognized by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. And that tiny supply creates intense demand among collectors who want the very best examples of every date in the Lincoln Cent series. Condition alone, though, isn't the only thing that matters. Error coins, those struck with mistakes, can catapult a penny's value into the stratosphere. And the 2001 penny has its share of fascinating errors. Some feature doubled dies, where the design elements like the date or lettering appear shadowed or doubled due to misalignment in the minting process. Others have off-center strikes, broad strikes that cause the design to spill beyond the rim, or clipped planchets where part of the coin's edge is missing. Even subtle variations like die cracks or cuds, small raised areas caused by breaks in the die, can make a coin more appealing to collectors. One of the reasons the 2001 penny captures so much attention is that it straddles a unique moment in the Lincoln Cent's history. It was minted in the last few years before the 2009 redesign, when the reverse still featured the iconic Lincoln Memorial design introduced in 1959. That makes it part of a long, beloved chapter in U.S. coinage, and collectors who aim to build complete date and mint mark sets pay close attention to even the most recent memorial cents. But here's where things get really interesting. Not all valuable 2001 pennies are error coins. Some are simply near-perfect examples from regular production, preserved in their original luster, as if frozen in time. These coins have surfaces so clean and details so sharp that they appear almost three-dimensional under the light. The red copper plating glows, free of the dull brown tarnish that comes with circulation. On such a coin, Abraham Lincoln's profile appears razor-sharp, and the fine lines in his hair and coat pop with striking clarity. On the reverse, every detail of the Lincoln Memorial stands out, from the columns to the statue of Lincoln inside, barely visible to the naked eye but perfectly formed. When one of these coins is submitted to a professional grading service and comes back with an MS-68 or MS-69 grade, the coin's value skyrockets. In the tight-knit world of high-grade collectors, bidding wars erupt for the best examples. Imagine dozens of seasoned collectors, all vying for the exact same coin, knowing that there may only be one or two of its caliber in existence. That competition can drive the price far beyond what anyone outside the hobby might expect. Part of the thrill is the hunt. Many collectors started by sifting through rolls of pennies from their local bank, hoping to stumble upon a hidden gem. While most find only common coins, every so often, a sharp-eyed searcher uncovers something extraordinary, a penny that somehow survived 2 decades without a single blemish. Stories of such finds spread quickly through collector forums, inspiring more searches and fueling the mystique of the 2001 no-mint mark penny. Even the way you handle a coin can mean the difference between it being worth a cent or a small fortune. Collectors use cotton gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints, store coins in acid-free holders to prevent discoloration, and never, ever clean a coin. Cleaning destroys its numismatic value. The preservation of a coin's original surface is sacred in the hobby, and for good reason. Once the surface is altered, it can never be restored. The 2001 penny also benefits from a broad collector base. The Lincoln Cent series is one of the most collected coin series in the world, partly because it's accessible. Anyone can start collecting from pocket change. but as collectors progress, they begin seeking higher-grade examples of each date. That demand means that exceptional coins from even recent years can command astonishing sums. There's also a generational factor at play. People who were children in 2001 are now adults, many with disposable income, nostalgia for the era, and an interest in collecting coins from their youth. This renewed interest drives prices upward for high-grade examples. It's the same phenomenon that has made vintage toys, comics, and trading cards from the late 20th and early 21st centuries explode in value, a combination of rarity, nostalgia, and competition among passionate collectors. When a rare, high-grade 2001 penny comes up for auction, it becomes more than just a coin. It's a piece of history, a perfect survivor from a year that, while recent in memory, is already part of the past. It represents a moment in American life captured in copper, a bridge between the analog world of the 20th century and the digital age we live in now. Some auction stories have become legendary. Tales of bidders refusing to back down, prices climbing in rapid increments, and gasps from the audience as the hammer falls. For those who aren't part of the numismatic world, it can be hard to understand. Why would anyone pay thousands for a penny? But for collectors, the answer is simple. They're not buying a penny, they're buying perfection, rarity, and history, all in one small, shining object. And while most 2001 pennies in circulation are worth exactly 1 cent, it's these rare, pristine examples that break the mold. They're the hidden treasures in our change, the proof that sometimes extraordinary value hides in plain sight. The thrill is knowing that your next coin could be one of them, if you only know what to look for. So next time you get change from the store, don't dismiss that penny without a second glance. Hold it up to the light. Check the surfaces, the strike, the details. You might just be looking at a survivor, a coin that defied the odds and escaped the wear and tear of everyday life. And if you're lucky enough to find one in truly exceptional condition, you'll understand why. In the world of coin collecting, even the smallest denominations can hold the greatest surprises. Because somewhere out there, sitting quietly in a collection or hidden away in a jar, is a 2001 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny so perfect, so rare, that when it finally crossed the auction block, it sold for an astonishing $17,000. Welcome back, treasure hunters, coin lovers, and everyone who knows that sometimes the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about a tiny coin that could change your life if you're lucky enough to spot it. It's not an ancient relic dug out of the ground after centuries. It's not some rare colonial coin hidden in an attic. No, this is something you could actually find in your pocket change today. And yet, it's worth more than most people's monthly salary, or even an entire year's salary in some cases. This coin is the 2015 D-Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin so ordinary in appearance that most people wouldn't give it a second glance. It's copper-colored, has the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and the Union Shield on the reverse. Billions were made in Denver that year, so it's easy to assume they're all the same. But some of them? They aren't just 1 cent. They are treasures. Now, before I tell you why this coin is special, I want you to imagine the year 2015 for a moment. The United States Mint was producing coins as it always did, meeting demand for circulation. At the Denver Mint, identified by the little D mint mark just below the date on the obverse, the presses were working non-stop. Every day, thousands upon thousands of Lincoln cents rolled off the machines, each one a small disc of copper-plated zinc, weighing about 2.5 grams. They were all meant to be identical. But here's the thing, perfection is a myth in minting, and sometimes, mistakes slip through the cracks. Collectors call these mistakes errors, or varieties, and they can be the difference between a penny worth exactly 1 cent and a penny worth thousands. With the 2015 D penny, some examples were struck with such unusual conditions that they became highly sought after. Maybe it was a double die, where the design is accidentally impressed twice on the die before striking coins. Maybe the planchet, the blank metal disc, was flawed, creating strange textures or off-center images. In some cases, striking pressure was miscalibrated, or the dies weren't perfectly aligned. Whatever the reason, These anomalies made certain 2015D pennies incredibly rare. And rarity, as you know, is the magic ingredient in the recipe for value. When there are billions of normal coins and only a handful of special ones, collectors will do anything to get their hands on those rare examples. That's how an everyday object transforms into a collector's prize. Let's talk about what makes these special 2015D Lincoln pennies stand out to experts. First, the doubling, one of the most exciting varieties for collectors. On some rare examples, you can see subtle or even dramatic doubling in the lettering. Liberty, in the motto, In God We Trust, or in the date, 2015, itself. Sometimes it's faint, only visible under magnification. Other times it's bold enough to see with the naked eye. This kind of doubling is not from the coin being struck twice. That's called a double strike, but from the die having the doubled image before it ever touched a planchet. These doubled die coins can send a wave of excitement through the collecting community when discovered. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design is noticeably shifted away from the middle. Some off-center strikes leave part of the coin blank on one side, showing raw metal where no design exists. The more extreme the shift, as long as the date and mint mark are still visible, the more collectors love it. A 2015D penny with a dramatic off-center strike could be worth far more than you might think. Another fascinating possibility is when a coin is struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Imagine a penny struck on a planchet meant for a dime or a foreign coin. The size, color, and weight can all be different, and such errors are instantly desirable because they are so scarce. They're like mint-made miracles that slip through undetected. But here's the real kicker. Most people have no idea these coins exist. They get tossed into change jars, handed over at gas stations, or dropped on sidewalks without a thought. That means the next time you get pennies back at the store, one of them could be something extraordinary, just waiting to be spotted by someone who knows what to look for. Collectors are always scanning their coins for markers of rarity. With the 2015D Lincoln cent, it's about being patient and observant. A good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe can reveal subtle details you'd otherwise miss. You're looking for doubling in the inscriptions, unusual shapes in the mint mark, shifted designs, or even unusual coloration caused by planchet defects. Any of these could be the sign of a valuable find. Now, let's take a step back and think about why coins like this are so compelling. Part of it is the thrill of the hunt. You're essentially treasure hunting in your own wallet, and that's a feeling most people never get to experience. Another part is history. Even though 2015 feels recent, each coin carries a story: where it's been, who's handled it, and how it survived in good enough condition to become collectible. And finally, there's the mystery. No one really knows how many rare 2015D pennies are still out there. Could it be hundreds? Dozens? Only a handful? That uncertainty fuels the passion of those searching for them. Condition, of course, plays a huge role in value. Coin collectors use a grading scale to determine how well a coin has been preserved, from poor at the very bottom to mint state at the top. A 2015D penny with a rare variety in mint state condition, bright, sharp, with no wear from circulation, can be worth dramatically more than one that's been bouncing around in pockets and purses for years. Some collectors even have these coins graded and encapsulated by professional grading services, which both preserves the coin and provides official verification of its authenticity. Think of it this way: two identical rare coins, one scratched and worn, the other pristine, will not sell for anywhere near the same price. In fact, the difference can be thousands of dollars. So if you're lucky enough to find a suspiciously interesting 2015D penny, handle it carefully. Don't clean it, because cleaning can actually destroy its value. Keep it in a protective sleeve or coin holder until you can have it examined by someone knowledgeable. Another thing to note is that demand for coins like this can spike when a big discovery makes headlines. When a collector finds a rare variety and it gets media attention, other collectors scramble to get their own examples. This competition can drive prices up temporarily, so timing can be just as important as the coin's physical condition. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, but what are we talking about in terms of actual money? Well, here's the exciting part. Some of the most desirable 2015 D Lincoln pennies, with rare errors or varieties in pristine condition, have been known to fetch staggering amounts from serious collectors and at auction. In fact, there has been at least one case where such a coin sold for as much as $14,000. Today, we're about to dive into a fascinating chapter in the ongoing story of American currency, a coin that many people overlook every single day, yet it hides a surprising tale behind its copper glow. This is the story of the 2016 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin you might have in your pocket, purse, or hiding somewhere in a jar at home right now. The penny has been a part of American life for more than a century, and while most people think of it as almost worthless, a relic of small change, collectors know the truth. In the right circumstances, a penny can be worth far more than its face value. In fact, some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were ordinary-looking pennies that held rare features, errors, or other traits that made them worth a fortune to the right buyer. And the 2016 no-mint mark penny has earned a place on that special list. To understand why this coin is so intriguing, we first need to take a quick step back into history. The Lincoln penny was first introduced in 1909, replacing the Indian head cent. This change was a tribute to Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, in honor of his 100th birthday. Over the decades, the Lincoln penny has undergone several design changes, including shifts in the reverse design and even in its metal composition. But one thing has stayed the same: the presence of a mint mark indicating where the coin was produced, unless, of course, it doesn't have one. You see, most pennies are struck at one of three major U.S. mint facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Denver coins bear a small D mint mark, San Francisco coins bear an S, and Philadelphia coins have historically used no mint mark at all. That's right, a penny without a mint mark is almost always from Philadelphia. But here's where the plot thickens. While no mint mark pennies from Philadelphia aren't unusual by themselves, certain years have quirks, production issues, or extremely rare varieties that make them stand out from the millions of others struck. The 2016 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of those years where a combination of events, error possibilities, and collector interest have created a small but passionate hunt for the most pristine and unusual examples. Now, you might be wondering, how can a coin minted just a few years ago possibly be worth more than a few cents? The answer lies in three key factors: condition, rarity, and demand. First, let's talk about condition. Coins are graded on a scale that ranges from poor to perfect, with the highest designation being mint state 70, meaning flawless under magnification. A coin's value rises sharply as you get closer to that perfect grade. The vast majority of coins in circulation have scratches, wear, and marks from being handled, dropped, or rattling around in pockets and cash registers. A 2016 penny that has been in circulation for years probably has little collector value beyond its copper-plated zinc content. But here's the twist: a small number of 2016 pennies were saved right after being struck, preserved in coin rolls, or kept in uncirculated mint sets. These coins remained untouched, showing sharp detail, bright luster, and no signs of wear. For collectors who specialize in modern coins, these top-grade examples are incredibly desirable. The second factor is rarity. While 2016 pennies were struck in the hundreds of millions, not every single one is the same. Some were struck with small variations, known as die varieties, that make them stand out. A doubled die, for example, happens when the die used to strike the coin has an engraving error, causing some elements of the design to appear doubled. On a penny, this might show up as doubled lettering in Liberty, or in the date 2016. Other varieties could include off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing due to the coin being misaligned during minting. These types of errors are like hidden treasures in everyday pocket change. Most people overlook them, but seasoned collectors know exactly what to look for, and they're willing to pay for the privilege of owning one. The third factor is demand, and this is where things really get interesting. Modern coin collecting has surged in popularity thanks to online marketplaces, YouTube channels, and social media groups dedicated to the hobby. Even coins from the last decade can spark bidding wars if they have the right combination of rarity and quality. The 2016 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny has become a prime target for collectors who want high-grade examples or rare varieties from recent years. Part of that demand also comes from the ongoing fascination with Lincoln cents in general. They're the longest-running design in U.S. coin history, and every new year brings the possibility of new eras, varieties, and special minting quirks. This means there's always a fresh wave of collectors who want to fill in their albums, not just with the older, classic pennies, but with modern, high-quality examples too. Now, let's paint a picture. Imagine you're sorting through a handful of change you got from a grocery store purchase. You spot a shiny penny and, without thinking much of it, toss it into a jar. Months later, you decide to go through your coins and, out of curiosity, you take a closer look. You notice the coin has no mint mark, so you do a little research. You grab a magnifying glass and realize it's in almost perfect condition, maybe even a rare variety. What started as just another penny could suddenly turn into something much more valuable. Stories like this have happened time and again in the coin world. People have found modern coins worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars just by paying attention. Collectors will tell you that finding a gem like this takes patience, knowledge, and a little bit of luck. Many will spend hours searching through rolls of pennies from banks, looking for that one special coin. And while the odds might be slim, the thrill of the hunt is what keeps people coming back. Of course, not every 2016 no-mint mark penny will be valuable. In fact, most are only worth face value. But for the small percentage of coins that are in pristine, mint-state condition, especially those with unique errors, the value can be significantly higher than you'd expect for such a recent coin. And here's the fascinating thing about coins like this: their value isn't just about the metal they're made of. It's about the story they tell. This penny represents a moment in history, a snapshot of the minting process, and a chance discovery that connects everyday people to the rich tradition of numismatics. Think about it. In 2016, the world was buzzing with major events. The presidential election in the United States dominated the news, technology continued to evolve at breakneck speed, and yet, in the midst of all that, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing billions of pennies, each one a tiny work of art. And out of those billions, a few stand apart, waiting to be discovered. When you hold a coin like this, you're holding a piece of history. You're holding something that passed through countless hands, or maybe never passed through any at all, if it's been preserved since the day it was struck. It's a direct connection to the people, places, and events of that year. Collectors understand this connection deeply. That's why they're willing to pay for the best examples they can find. And for a coin like the 2016 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, in flawless condition, the price can be astonishing. So, the next time you get change from a store, don't just toss your pennies aside. Take a closer look. Check the date. See if there's a mint mark. Look for unusual features or perfect condition. You never know when you might come across a hidden gem, because somewhere out there, among the billions of pennies in circulation, there are coins that tell a much bigger story, coins that can turn an ordinary day into an unforgettable discovery. And for the lucky collector who finds the right 2016 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, that story could be worth an incredible $10,000.